Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie, and what I love is crazy. Yes, I'm Carrie, and I love crazy. The adjective that is, not the condition. Um, an affection which is doubtlessly connected to a love hate history with the use of the word in relation to myself. It was so clever and alliterative. Crazy Carrie girl, or just that's my crazy friend Carrie. Um, so I definitely have a history as the object of that adjective, um, and its use, I suppose, in that context, is the object of the author Katie Klabuscik's criticism, which is entitled "Replace Crazy with the Adjective You Really Mean," which was first published on The Establishment and is now accessible through Medium, where I found it. Regardless of where, who, whatever, all that, I object to this on the basis that crazy is a marvelous word, so marvelous that I actually love it. My primary objection to this culling of the lexicon is generic, and it's that there's no colloquial monopoly on this word, on crazy, on what it applies to and what context. Its usage is boundless, and there's really no remaining situation which could occur to which it has no application. Mental illness, which is something the author and I do share in common, it does not own the trademark, and also the author does not own the trademark. And it's this little factoid which struck me as actually being the the major compelling component of her rhetorical situation. Um, that in combination with the social media proliferation of End the Stigma in recent years, which has somehow given rise to this extremist subsection of nobody say crazy anymore, for lack of any better ideas, I guess, on how to end the stigma. Um, the criticism is bizarre. I won't say it's crazy yet, but it is one part gratuitous autobiography, part two slander of this adjective for having been dragged in as a fixture of her private history of negative self-talk, self-concept, and self-identity, and part three just like a searing condemnation of lazy word selection. And the impression this amounts to, in all, is that she really wants other people to stop using her word. And that since she can't own this word crazy, she's going to disown it instead. So objectivity was overwhelmingly nowhere at all in this criticism. Subjectively, however, she did manage to toss in careless remarks about such styles of crazy as alcoholism, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder, all of which do not affect the author, who does identify as a mental health patient, so it's odd then that she would be, you know, sort of uninformed, right? We'll just go with uninformed comments about those major conditions, which are supposed to be what populations she's speaking to protect the perception of or whatnot. So that was a bit backward. And amongst all the backwardness going on here, I could not detect any indication of an intended audience, except maybe herself. But because what she opens with is like her proudest accomplishment. Apparently, it's that she's officially done saying crazy on Twitter now. Like it's official. Like it's over. It's over and it's official and it's the real thing now. And then this leads to the only natural question, and isn't it time we finally all agreed to do the same? And we all, I think, and applied in that context, would repel just about anyone. It repelled me. So what is criticism then, since this isn't it? This is an overwrought anecdote, which is no reason to edit the lexicon or anything else. This opinion is ethically unequipped to be engaging in persuasion, and my concept of criticism is an opinion which isn't ethically unequipped to do that. It's one that has a place in the conversation. I only suspect myself, by the way, of like being vaguely rational whatsoever. By way of like former inane positions, which were just like so wild that I can only have improved upon them. And because like as a lateral peripheral type thinker, it's sort of a chore, but I sort of like can't see only one side of something. Like it just like won't come into view that way. Like I need to have like two perspectives before I can see any. You know, pain in the ass. Anyway, the author is critical most highly of Crazy's dueling definitions, but forgets to consider in the midst of this that there is another side to everything, and that includes even a dichotomy. So here are some of her arguments in terms of what went unconsidered. The thing that I really don't get is why? Why cut ties now with a word that it's become normalized when the struggle is to not be perceived as a mutant? In the aftermath of having been profoundly crazy for a while, I have found crazy to be an indisputably reliable conversational utility. It really works like nothing else for saying what it is. 2. Crazy is ubiquitous. Well, that's true enough. And it's true also that it's exploited to attract, convert, exaggerate, and target. But what I can't say I disagree with to the extent that the author does is sensationalism. Although I don't agree with it either. It's just sort of not something to be agreed or disagreed with. It's just sort of the way the human condition happened. So, would the world be a better place if balanced, researched global journalism had the market share majority? Probably not anyway. I don't know, and it doesn't matter, because sensationalism is just what's built in, to the world as it's happening, and sensationalism does happen to be crazy, so therefore a lot of things are crazy, and therefore crazy applies a lot of the time, and this ubiquitousness may not be out of line. 3. Crazy does not lack definition, which the author suggests. If it did, then the topic doesn't even exist. Get with it. Crazy has a definition that's double wide. It's the product of a little serendipitous hybridization of conflicting connotations that has a really interesting history that I could not tell you and cut this short, or could tell you. It's so interesting. Okay, so I will. The word crazy appeared in the 14th century as an appropriation of craze, which was then used in exclusive reference to the application of a specific decorative finish to pottery, which is now known as crackle, because craze meant crack. Whoa. That makes sense, right? I know. Better yet, the adoption of crazy by the early Harlem jazz scene referred directly back to craze in the original sense, since jazz is rhythmically asyncopated and its impact comes from being fractured. So the argument then that crazy's positive spin was introduced as the result of linguistic misappropriation is technically false, unless the original negative spin was introduced the same way. The slang was applied to interesting, excellent, original, and most importantly, offbeat music because of its derivation from craze, though it was certainly no secret to the Harlem community that crazy was in use by white people as synonymous with insanity. African Americans have been significantly overrepresented in the insane population for a long time, all of it. Institutionalization was a special threat to young black men, since something had to be done about them. Retaliatory slang is how the times change, and this application combated systemic racism and preconceptions about mental illness simultaneously, and that's amazing. But to fully just not know the backstory of something you're proposing be erased is deliriously stupid, and crazy's just not as bad as that. So, the gist is that crazy means cracked, and that's why Crazy Glue fixes that. Oh my god, it all makes sense. I know, it's all coming together, and that is not crazy. Not crazy at all. It's the opposite of what crazy is, except it's just so crazy sometimes how stuff comes together, right? Crazy is an anomaly. It is a word whose definition is cracked, but just that. Crazy is not broken. It is not broken into distinct meanings because the minds of everyone didn't need to break it up to bridge the difference or their differences. And to me, I have always found that some sort of powerful evidence that crazy is more than a word, that it's like a true social artifact with an unspeakable distinction to its essence that's held in mutual trust. And I reinforce this with the author's opening comments, or second opening comments, in which she reflects on growing up in a household where crazy was put to constant use as an overused adjective for describing anything that felt indescribable or beyond explanation. Stay off drugs.